prepare me, be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for. Great is your faithfulness. Great is your faithfulness. You never change. You never fail, oh God. True are your promises. True are your promises. You never change. You never fail, oh God. So we raise up holy hands to praise the Holy One who was and is to come. Yeah, we raise up holy hands to praise the Holy One who was and is to come. Wide is your love and grace. Wide is your love and grace. You never change. You never fail, oh God. So we raise up holy hands to praise the Holy One who was and is to come. Yeah, we raise up holy hands to praise the Holy One who was and is to come. You were, you are, you will always be. You were, you are, you will always be. You were, you are, you will always be.
1 second. Make sure the pipes are ready. Me, you. Yeah, good enough. Here we go. Good morning, Oak Life Church. I'm Cameron Bird, and these are your Sunday morning announcements. We first just want to make sure that you know you are loved. Please let us know if you need any support. Oak Life has organized some mental health resources, and we want you to know that whatever you are experiencing, you are not alone. Email leadership@oaklifechurch.com for any information or if you need anything at all. Now, friends, one of the things I've really been enjoying about announcements in this forum is getting to know individual members of Oak Life Church by observing what's behind them in their homes. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm totally less informed than I used to be because I'm way distracted trying to read the title of that book or figure out that abstract art. But I feel such a deep sense of community with those of you who have been doing announcements because now I know I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who doesn't put away all his laundry before recording these. It got me thinking, friends, that maybe some of you would like to get to know a little bit more about me. Today, I'm going to reveal a seldom seen in public side of myself. Welcome to Announcements, the dad joke version. What kind of drink can be both bitter and sweet? Reality. Hey, I didn't say they were funny. I just said they were dad jokes. Let me tell you about our benevolence fund. We have set up a COVID-19 benevolence fund for folks who might be in need. If you have a need, then please reach out. Email benevolence@oaklifechurch.com. On the other hand, if you have some excess and you would like to support and donate, then please go to oaklifechurch.com/generosity. 3 doctors walk into a bar. Nah, I'm just kidding. That wouldn't happen today. They know better. Hey, Wednesday, what are you doing at noon? Come join us for prayers at noon. As one of the ways we're staying connected and remembering to pray for our world, we are asking everyone, please set an alarm for Wednesdays at noon and take a brief moment to say a prayer for our church, our world, anything else on your heart. You can also head over to oaklifechurch.com and check out the pandemic prayer wall so that you can pray along for the needs of others. Also happening this Wednesday, it is time for parent hangouts. Yes, that's right. This Wednesday at 7 p.m. Bring your favorite beverage, a snack, and catch up with other Oak Life parents. You can email Andy at oaklifechurch.com. That's ANDI@oaklifechurch.com. Let her know that you want to join and she will send you that Google Hang link. Also, the following Wednesday, the 19th, we have a special parent hangout. There will be a book reading for Oak Life Sprouts. That's right, bring your little ones. Andy will be reading aloud You Are Here for a Reason by Nancy Tillman. Makes me wish I was a sprout. Hey, how do you weigh a millennial? In Instagrams. Join us on Sunday, August 16th, as we share updates on the health, vision, mission, and dreams of Oak Life. Given all that's been going on in our church and in the world, we are inviting the community to join our leadership team for a presentation and discussion about where we've been and where we're heading. Now, this meeting will be on August 16th at 11:15 a.m. That's right after church. Make sure to send an email to leadership@oaklifechurch.com asking for the invitation to the meeting. Also, be sure to check out this week's newsletter in your email to see the agenda and submit any questions in advance. It's that time of year, folks. Pride is coming. Yes, that's right. Pride, Oakland Pride in September. Help the Oak Life Pride team create content for our virtual space at Oakland Pride in September. We're looking for folks who will send us a photo for a music video that we're creating or participate in a Zoom panel interview about their Oak Life experience. Whether you're straight or not, we need you. Help us out. So contact me for this one. I am Cameron Bird at gmail.com. That's I am Cameron Bird at gmail.com. Pretty swanky email address, wouldn't you agree? And stay tuned for more announcements about celebrating Pride Inside 2020. You know, dads are wise. My dad offered me wisdom all the time. When I was a young man, my dad telling me, son, you'll never find a perfect match. That's why I always use a lighter. Hey, life groups are starting up again. This is the season. We're trying to stay connected as a community, and we're looking for folks who would like to host or lead a community space. Could be a Bible study, a cooking group, a check-in time, anything else that you would like to invite others to join you in virtual space. If you are interested in hosting an Oak Life group, or if you would like to learn more, email Greg at oaklifechurch.com. Now, I probably missed something here, so be sure to check out the weekly newsletter in your email. What's that? You don't get our newsletter in your email every week? No worries. Just send an email to Chris at oaklifechurch.com and Chris will add you to the distribution. It's just once a week. There's no spam, I promise. All right, best time of the announcements. No, not the end. I heard that. Couch Convos. This is our couch conversation time where we want you to huddle up with the folks that are in the room with you, or use your mobile device to huddle up with folks who are a little bit further away. We'd like you to hug yourself and talk to another human. Could be your roommate, your partner, your kids, whoever's there with you, or somebody that you can text. In fact, if you have my text number, please text me. Because if you don't, it's literally just going to be me talking to my couch right now. Okay, so here are our couch conversation points for this week. First, share how you're doing. Then, share when do you feel most connected to others. And finally, share what has been one way you've experienced community recently. Finally, don't forget, it takes real guts to be an organ donor. I'm Cameron Bird, and this has been your Sunday morning announcement session, dad joke version.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Chris, and I'll be leading us in the reflection. Before I get into today's subject, there's a couple things I want to say really quick. First is just a thank you to Say and to Dev for leading us the last few weeks. You really gave a gift to our church. We are so fortunate to have so many people who are amazing and gifted and talented and make us who we are. So thank you. The second thing I want to say is that we're starting communion next week. We're going to be doing communion next week and maybe every week after that for a little while. And the reason being is that in this time of isolation and disconnection, so much of our lives is digital. It's online. And Greg and I were discussing ways that we can make it more than that. We can remember the basics in the midst of all the chaos that's going on in the world. How do we center on those things? And communion has always been a ritual, a way to remember the most sacred things of all of reality and of our faith and of our community. And so we're going to be sending out a recipe this week and inviting you to bake bread during the week at some point, letting us in on it by sending us a picture of it. And if you are able to do that, you could use that bread alongside with us. So stay tuned for that, and there'll be more info on that as we come up. But we are in this conversation called Finding God in the Wilderness. And the wilderness in the biblical tradition is one of the most sacred terrains. It's a space of isolation, of barrenness, of uncertainty, of danger. And this theme, this context, this setting so intersects with our historical moment that these stories speak to us and where God is in the midst of it. So we are in a season of wilderness. We're in a pandemic, and we're exploring these themes, these lessons, these stories together. And as we get into this today we're going to talk about something that I think is a crucial aspect of surviving the wilderness. And not just surviving, but thriving and being transformed in the wilderness. Today's talk is called The Connection Paradox. And I'm going to be talking about two ideas that are essential for us as humans that seem like opposite truths that can't coexist, which is what a paradox is, but that do. And an idea that kind of transcends them and collapses that binary. And so just a reminder as we enter this space and to introduce today's topic, I'd like to share a quote from Marlena Graves, who wrote a book called A Beautiful Disaster, which is a book on how God uses hard times to make beautiful things. She writes, God uses the desert of the soul, our suffering and difficulties, our pain, our dark nights, call them what you will, to form us, to make us beautiful souls. He redeems what we might deem our living hells if we allow him. The hard truth, then, is this. Everyone who follows Jesus is eventually called to the desert. And she goes on to say, the desert is a blessing in disguise. The desert is a blessing disguised as a curse, a study in contrasts. See, contrasts are some of the things that I think the desert brings out. Times of connection, but times of isolation. Times of humanity expressing its beauty, but also times of humanity expressing its depravity. And so today, as we continue the wilderness journey, I want to highlight one apparent contrast that is true for all of us, and maybe one of the most true things that we need to wrestle with in this season. This particular paradox has to do with how you are made and how we as people enter into this season together. Because whether we like it or not, we're probably here for a while. We just don't know how long it's going to be. So as we enter into this, I'd like to share a passage of scripture with you all. Quick backdrop. This is Psalm 63, which is historically one of the most cherished psalms. John Chrysostom wrote that the early church fathers and mothers ordained this psalm as a morning prayer every day that they would sing. And he also says that the spirit and soul of the whole book of Psalms is held within this psalm. So the Psalm 63. Not all the Psalms have a heading as we start it, like a little title, introduction, but this one does. So listen to the words of our sacred text with me this morning. Psalm 63, a psalm of David regarding a time when David was in the wilderness of Judah. O God, you are my God. I earnestly search for you. My soul thirsts for you. My whole body longs for you in this parched and weary land where there is no water. I have seen you in your sanctuary and gazed upon your power and glory. Your unfailing love is better than life itself. How I will praise you. I will praise you as long as I live, lifting up my hands to you in prayer. You satisfy me more than the richest feast. I praise you with songs of joy. I lie awake thinking of you, meditating on you through the night, because you are my helper. I sing for joy in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your strong right hand holds me securely. But those plotting to destroy me will come to ruin. They will go down into the depths of the earth. They will die by the sword and become food for jackals. But the king will rejoice in God. All who swear to tell the truth will praise him, while liars will be silenced. Psalm 63. Maybe take a moment to read that or listen to it. And if there is a word or a phrase that's standing out to you, it'd be great if you could enter it into the chat, just as a way for us to listen to this text together. And this psalm is a psalm that I so appreciate because it's so raw. You see the humanity of the writer, of David, and you see contrasts. He's in a time of isolation, but he also has joy. He's in a time of fearing for his life, but he senses God offering him security. He's in a time where he has a lot of uncertainty, but he remembers the times of feasting and going to the temple. And I also so appreciate the anger that you see in David's words, right? It starts with this like, God, I need you in this time. You're my helper. I'm going to sing to you even in this dark night. And the people who are coming against me, they're all going to die. They're all going to get it, right? I think that anger reflects well our moment, right? There's so much going on, and I could see in myself for sure like this anger at the things that are coming up against us. Maybe not people, but the virus, maybe injustice, maybe racism, maybe my own struggles, my own addictions and habits. I long for those things to be put to death. And so what I find interesting about this psalm is that it's written in mostly singular first person. It's one person writing it. It's David, but it's also a prayer, a psalm that thousands have read through the centuries, if not millions. And so you have this tension of I and we. In the wilderness, people have prayed this psalm alone together. I don't know if you remember that movie. I can't remember the name of it. I should have looked it up, but there's a movie where this band is trying to get famous, and their name is the Lone Rangers. And in the movie, they're always like, you can't call yourself that because it's a paradox. You can't be the Lone Rangers. You can't be singular and plural. But this psalm kind of is both of those things. Prayed by thousands of people together, alone. And so today I want to talk about what it means for us to brave the wilderness, to thrive in the wilderness, to be together in the wilderness alone. And I want to share just two truths that seem like a paradox, that seem like opposites, that are true at the same time, that we each need to reconcile in our own selves. And remember, the first truth is this: you can't go into the wilderness alone. The wilderness is a season of isolation. But if you look back to the Exodus story, it's always a group of people, right? The Israelites were liberated from Egypt, but then they go into the desert of Sinai, and you read over and over refrains like Exodus 16:1, the whole Israelite community set out, or they left this place and they went to this place. It's all they, them, the whole community. And in some ways, I'm envious of them, right? They're in a wilderness season, but at least they're together, right? They have one another physically. They're in this desert this wilderness, but they're there in their entirety of their community. In Exodus it says that there's around 600,000 people who are counted in Exodus 12:37, counting just the men. So you could assume that maybe there's somewhere upwards of 2 million people together alone in the wilderness. And I think if we reflect on that, maybe we're like, it'd be nice if we had that. But here's the thing. I think the alone togetherness is an essential thing to wrestle with in this time. And though we might feel like we are exiled in our houses, in our quarantine, that we are in our wilderness just with our own self, we can't go to work, we can't go to church, though we might feel that, we are not alone. And we have to choose connection and community in this time. Otherwise, we will drift towards more isolation. The forces that want to divide us, want to separate us, want to keep us alone, they will become stronger and stronger. And I got to be honest, I hate. No, I should rephrase that. I've been opposed to online church for a long time. I had this bias for a long time that it's not church if it's not in person. There's nothing like human connection, looking at somebody's heart while you look into their eyes across a table, while you're sitting by their bedside and they're sick and you hold their hand. That is the work of church. And I've always thought that Jesus came in the flesh, in incarno, and the incarnation. And so last year we were at a conference, and there was this breakout session for ministry leaders. This was a conference called the With Collective, which is a network of churches similar to Oak Life, and they're longing to be inclusive and that they care about justice. And so one of the breakout sessions was doing church online. And as the presenters shared afterwards, they opened up for comment. And my comment was to push back against the idea, saying, hey, I don't think you can do church online. We should not, as the world becomes more disembodied and online, I think what the church has to offer is an embodied community in person and face-to-face contact. We need that, breaking the bread together. And the person who was leading, my friend Tommy Allgood, who some of you might know from some various networks, he says back to me, well, isn't that ableist? And, I got defensive, I don't know, but as I've reflected on it, he was right. What does it mean to be connected to one another if you can't physically be connected to one another? And even though we're in this wilderness, we need to choose connection. We need to remember that we're not alone. Because I think that human connection goes deeper than being able to touch another person's hand or see their eyes in person. I actually think that in the realm of church, what we're dealing with is something spiritual, a spiritual connection that transcends the physical. And I think about this with my friend who is an hospital chaplain, and she's working with people and helping them die alone. How do people die alone and still feel loved and connected to one another? And she's told me stories over stories where she has helped people experience that. And so what I'm learning in this season is that relationship transcends geography. That relationship and human connection is something more than the physical, deeper than just the physical. So I'm going to go on a little tangent here. I'm by no means an expert in these areas, but I want to talk to you about quantum physics and quantum entanglement. Where is he going? How did he get here? Quantum. Yes. And the remainder of my talk will not be on this. This will be short, I promise. But I'll use these ideas as metaphors. One of the things I love about learning about quantum physics or astrophysics is that there's so much about the universe, about reality, that we think we know that we don't. The deeper we get, there are, you open up one door and there are 10 doors behind it that have mysteries that need to be solved. And so here's one of them. Einstein actually thought this idea was an impossibility, but over the last few decades, some scientists have kind of proven that his theory has some validity. So the theory is called quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement is the idea, the theory, as observed numerous times, that entangled particles, such as photons or electrons, so they're entangled, can be separated and that when you act on one over here, it has an effect on the other over here. And that in theory, this phenomenon, quantum entanglement, can happen across vast spaces, like even opposite ends of the universe. Particles can become entangled, and that the distance in space and time is collapsed in some metaphysical or quantum way. And we still don't know why or how, but we've observed that this is true, that photons and electrons can become quantumly entangled, that even across vast spaces, what happens over here affects over here instantly. And this is just, the imagery here is beautiful, right? There's a lot of theoretical science and stuff that they're working out, but the idea of it just speaks to this moment in terms of our entanglement. What does it mean for us to be spiritually entangled to one another? I think we already are. I think that we are connected even if we can't hold each other or see each other in person. We are spiritually entangled. And I want to say that I think this is something that is true, but also you have to choose. I do think that there are forces in our reality that want to divide us, that there is darkness that wants to isolate us. And sometimes those forces win the day. But we have to get up the next day and choose connection even still. Choose the truth that we are entangled. Now, these ideas are deeply theological. This is the whole concept of the Trinity. That God, the truth underneath all truth, the love behind all reality, exists in community with God's self. That some call the Trinity a cosmic, eternal dance of love. And we as humans are created to reflect that God, to reflect a God of community, a God of connection. And so whenever we choose those things, we're choosing to become aligned or to become in tune with the love underneath it all. When we choose connection, when we choose to honor our spiritual quantum entanglement. This is the metaphor of the body, that each of us is a separate part. All right? Yes, we are unique and different, but we need each other. We are connected. So the challenge this week, or the thought this week in this first truth, is that yes, we're in a season of isolation, but you cannot go alone. You are not alone, and we have to choose connection. Don't go alone. Reach out to people. Find ways to become in tune with the frequency of God, the connection of God, the love entanglement that runs underneath everything. Find ways to lean into that as you already are. Expand on that. This week, one way for me, I did this is by contacting my counselor. I haven't talked to my counselor since January. I haven't met with my counselor since January. We set up a meeting, and it was good. I needed a space to be heard. I needed a space to process. I needed that. I needed to not go alone. What's one way for you to choose connection this week? To choose to reflect the God of community and connection in this season of wilderness. Yes, we are alone, kind of, but we can't continue, we can't thrive, we can't brave the wilderness fully alone. How can you choose community? Maybe it's just choosing to engage in Oak Life more, or texting more people, or praying for more people, finding ways, even though you can't be in person, to be in spirit connected. Thank God that I was wrong about church, right? Because church fully, 100%, 1,000,000% can happen via various mediums, including online. I've seen us choose connection and community so many times over these last few months. And so I've been proven wrong. That's the truth number one. You can't go into the wilderness alone. Truth number two. You can only go into the wilderness alone. The paradox of being human is that we exist as a communal body and as individual people. You think about this spiritually. Moses many times was alone on Sinai, even though he's with 2 million people. Jesus entered the wilderness, the beginning of his ministry, alone. The calling of Jesus was only his to execute, to walk. I think about sports, right? I was talking about this concept with Greg again, and he was like, yeah, just like if you're a boxer, you train with people, but ultimately it's only you that can go into the ring. And there's a sense that each of us carries unique stuff. Each of us has a unique thing to offer the world, and it's only ours to offer. Our wilderness experience will be uniquely ours. You know, I think about the loneliness of the wilderness, and I talk to so many people. Everyone carries some loneliness. Everyone I know. And I think we're scared of that. And we feel like we're the only ones who feel lonely alone. Like, in reality, we're all alone together. And when we start to acknowledge the unique experience that each of us has, we can look at ours and embrace it and not run from it. We can see our struggles as opportunities for transformation instead of something to be ashamed of. You know, I think we can also start to empathize with others. We can carry other people's cross just for a moment, right? There's this story of Jesus in the Passion narrative carrying the cross that would be his own death, and along the ways Simon carried it just for a moment. As we start to acknowledge that everybody is carrying their own cross in this season, we can lift the burden for one another as we recognize our own unique stuff that we have to work through. This is one of the challenges of the wilderness. It brings up your stuff. If you're not seeing it, you know, we're 5 months in. If you're not seeing it yet, it's going to come. Your own insecurities, your own challenges, they will come up in the wilderness. And I say this not to sound heavy or to make you scared, but to invite you to let it be, to find God there and use this as an opportunity. Your experiences are yours to live, and your cross is yours to carry. And ultimately, there are specific callings, there are specific gifts that each of us brings to the world that only we can bring. And as much as we are spiritually or quantumly entangled to one another, each of us has a role. So what's my point here? My point here is that when we embrace our own experience and take responsibility for our own growth, our own health, we have the opportunity to make the whole body healthier. We can do the things that only we can do. We can get the help that we specifically need. So I encourage you, if there's a part of this wilderness season that is scary and you feel alone in, I guarantee you're not alone. And I would say, whatever you need to go do the thing you need to do, do it. Do it. Don't wait. We need you to do it. One of my favorite things to say to folks is, thanks for being you. Just being you, just as you are, thank you. Because that's what the world needs. That's what we need. And thank you for enduring your wilderness season, whatever it is. The last few weeks, both Dev and Say shared some parts of their own journeys that have been wilderness. Thank you that you shared that with us. It makes us all better that you entered your wilderness with the bravery to find God with you. I believe each person carries uniquely the image of God. And the ramifications for this, that we each have that image, but that we are each carrying something, we're each struggling with things, can allow us to deepen our empathy for fellow human beings. See, I think we live in this social media world where everything is comparison, and we are like social creatures, so we learn through comparison, right? Mirrored neurons and so forth. And so the danger in this season is looking at everybody else and thinking that the way they're doing the wilderness is the way I should be doing it. But each of us has to do the wilderness our own particular way. And as we do, we start to realize, start to remember that everyone is carrying something, that every other person on the planet is in a wilderness of their own, even if they don't look like it on their social media feed. It reminds me of this old quote that's origins are debated, but it's this: be kind, because everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. When we realize that the wilderness, the particular thing that we're going through, only fully, it's something that's specific to us, we start to realize that everybody else has that journey too, and it unites us. And we deepen our empathy for one another. What if we treated everybody that way? We were kind to everyone because we thought that, and we knew that they're going through something. What if instead of projecting our own way to do things, or letting the world project the ways the world should engage the wilderness onto us, what if we allowed everybody's journey to be their journey? And we did it together. So I commission you to be you. Thank you for being you. Whatever your orientation, gender, your politics, your race, your age, thank you for being uniquely you and entering into the wilderness that is yours. I may not fully understand it, but God sees it, and we love you. And if you need somebody to carry the cross that you're carrying for a moment, reach out. So those are the paradoxes. You have to go into the wilderness alone. You can't go alone, and you can only go alone. Both of these things are true about this moment and about us. And I think as we acknowledge these things, we have the potential to come out the other side of this, to be transformed by this season as we go together and as we go alone. And I think there's something that transcends this paradox, that collapses it or holds it, if you will. It holds all things together. And that's God's love and God's presence. Going back to that Psalm 63, over and over, the thing that allows David to survive his own wilderness was this concept of God's presence, God's sanctuary, God's refuge, God's help. And so the thing that transcends the wilderness, because if you think about this in like a terrain, right? We entered into this season. Some of us feel like this is uncharted territory. This is new. We've never been here before. The reality is God's been in the wilderness the whole time. And not only has God been there, but God will be in the next wilderness. God will be in the next promised land. And when that promised land falls apart, which is kind of what happens in part of the cycle, God will be with us in the wilderness again. Exile, Exodus, promised land, or Egypt, God's presence is a thing that holds it all together. And really, my hope in this season is not to give people more systematic theology, give them more words about God, but that we would each somehow, somewhere, sense God's presence with us, because it is the one thing that will outlast this. It is the thing that will be with you in the hospital bed when nobody else can. It is the thing that will be with you as our bodies fail. It is the thing that will be with you when you're at a party with lots of people feeling alone. It is the thing, the force, the reality that knows your particular wilderness experience. We may not see it, but God sees it and is with you. As Tozer says, the person who has God for their treasure has all things in one. This is the thing. The awareness of love beyond love with you always, eternally and imminently in this moment. How do you sense God's presence in this season, in this moment for you? Maybe it's when you go outside. Maybe it's when you log on to this service. What are the ways you notice God? I think God is everywhere, reflected in all things, and in a very real way, more able to be seen in the wilderness because our distractions have been stripped from us. Where do you see God? And as you do, keep asking that question. And as you do, hold on to it, because we forget easily. One of the main themes of the wilderness stories, God shows up and the people forget. May we not forget God's presence with us. So, in closing, we have to go together. Find ways to lean into community, but you can only go alone. And in both of those truths, God holds it all together, and sees it all. I'll close with a blessing from the book of Numbers, written within the Exodus wanderings. Oak Life, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. May you sense God's smile and presence over your life today and forevermore. Amen.
Hi. It feels like an ocean of sorrow is under my skin. But even the ocean eventually meets with the sand. Sorrow on sorrow, I'm waiting. Heavy, I'm anticipating. Trusting the current will carry me. You are my strength. You are my song. Oh, you are my salvation. You hold it all together. You hold it all together. We come with great expectations and fears in our hearts. Send us your light as we're making our way through the dark. All of our earlier troubles, chaos and pain, they unravel. Looking ahead, we rejoice in you. Oh, you are my strength. You are my song. You are my salvation. You hold it all together. You hold it all together. You hold it all together.
Good morning, Oak Life. I'm Gina, and I wanted to do the benediction with you this morning, but also wanted to take a minute to thank everyone who made the service possible today, and people who continue to make these services possible every single week. So Young and Eric on worship and on the music team, thank you. Cameron on announcements. Chris with the message. And again, everyone who made this week possible with all the things that are going on, and we hope that we can continue to have things going on and have engagement. So if you ever have an idea or you want to get a group of people together online, just basically raise your hand and you'll be able to do it. So let's keep that going. And I wanted to share a little quote that I wrote in my journal many years ago. I don't know who it's by, but it has to do with the wilderness, and it's just a small quote. You are not on a journey to God. You are on a journey with God. And I love that because there's a lot of talk about finding God, finding God, finding God, and I think that more means the questions we ask about God. That's sort of like finding God, right? But God is always with us. And I think a lot of times we feel like God has abandoned us or we are alone. But in fact and truth, we are never alone. God is with us always. And it's impossible to be separated from God. And so I think it's really important to remember that when we feel like we're alone or we feel like God is not with us or that God has left us, that is really just a feeling, right? It's just an emotion. So I just wanted to share that quote, and now I'd like to share the benediction with you. And I know that you just say it right where you're at, or just reflect in this moment with me. God of love, who can separate us from you? Can troubles or hardships, persecution, hunger, poverty, danger, pandemics, or even death? The answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. No matter what comes our way, we have overwhelming victory through God who loves us and gave himself up for us. May we go into the coming week with joy and hope, confident in the knowledge that your love goes with us. Be with us now as we go forth to love and serve the world, even from a distance. Have a great week, everyone.